Hey, everybody. Hey, it's awesome to see you. It is so great to see you. I'm in a great mood today, guys. We got an amazing one for you today, folks. Super great. We got the awesome and always fun to have Mike Codella with us today. Of course, Mike Codella, you guys all know him. I mean, we don't need to introduce this guy, do we? But yet we are going to anyway. So, of course, Mike Codella, great friend of the show. And I just want to let you know that Mike Codella has a very fairly extensive web presence, and we want to make his stuff known. So, just everybody, Mike Codella has the great book Alphaville, and of course, before I ever met Mike, I made sure that I bought his book and read it from cover to cover, and I was extremely impressed with it. I have to say, as a fan of true crime. I didn't know what to expect. I was kind of hoping for Son of Sam stories, but of course the book is about Mike's legendary career as a police officer and later detective sergeant in the NYPD, and his extensive career on the streets of Alphabet City. And of course, when he was working those streets, Alphabet City was truly the real New York. Which of course, as we'll talk about with Mike maybe briefly, the old New York is coming back. Thanks to the policies of these lame brains in office, who people keep on voting in. But anyway, we won't talk about that today. And of course, so you can go to Amazon and pick up his book. You can get it in hardcover, MP3, CD. I guess he has Kindle too somewhere, audiobooks, and of course you can get the hardcover if you want. And I meant to bring my book down to Mike when I met him to sign it, but I never did. But hopefully we'll get that opportunity. And then, of course, Mike has a YouTube page, which you guys should definitely be checking out. And it's Mike Codella, Up Against the Wall. And this is a great channel. Only 882 subscribers. What's going on, guys? Get on his station right now and pump that up to 1,000, folks. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a legend, a living legend that's with us, and so he deserves much more of your support. But the web page is Mike Codella, Up Against the Wall, and of course it's all his great war stories, and some of them have to do with Son of Sam and Eton Pates, and of course that's how we met. Mike and I last year, going on about a year now, and he's got some David Berkowitz stuff in there, a letter that David Berkowitz wrote to him, and of course we've been all about letters of David Berkowitz lately. So you know where to find Mike now. Go to his YouTube page, go to his Alphaville page, and without further ado, let's bring in the man of the hour. You all know him, and hopefully you all love him. The one, the only. There he is, Mike. Hello, the great Mike.
What's up?
I'm doing great, Mike. And hey, I was looking at our first video that we did together, and it's just about a year since you and I first met. I think we met in the summertime. Started reaching out to you about this time last year, and of course you were very gracious, and you met this totally unknown character. You even drove in from your house to meet me on the Lower East Side of New York City, where we walked the mean streets, which of course were no longer mean. And we had a great time just talking old stories. And I had meant to actually have this discussion with you. Hold on one second. For some reason, I'm having an issue here with the chat. There we go. I had actually meant to talk to you about the issue that we're talking about today, which is, of course, the Process Church and Son of Sam. I had meant to talk to you about that last year. In fact, wanted to really follow up with you on that because, well, quite frankly, I'd listened to some of your interviews that you did with other podcasters, and I was not satisfied, not because of your answers, but because I didn't feel that the people interviewing you were really of a good quality. I mean, you don't have to comment on that. That's just my opinion. And I didn't feel they got the best out of you. But once you and I started talking, all of a sudden I brought up the name Godjusek and your eyes lit up. And all of a sudden we started talking about Eton Pates, and it ended up in this whole other thing that actually really helped me out because it brought us on another tangent on this whole Son of Sam thing last year. And we, of course, explored that Godjusek thing greatly. And this whole issue of the Process Church, of course, people know my opinion. I am right now of the opinion that the Process Church had nothing to do with Son of Sam. And of course, we are having this show because I want to be educated by the people who know these things. So Mike and I actually never spoke about this before, and I am just as excited as you guys are out there to hear what the great Mike Codella has to say. But Mike, before we get into that, I need your opinion on something. I got something in the in my email the other day that once again blew me away, and I wanted your opinion. So, of course, everyone knows before our little break occurred, not me and you, but the break in the action that I had a couple of weeks ago, where we kind of stopped the regular show and all this kind of stuff, which I'm going to address, by the way, on a separate video, completely separate video. I really don't want to get into that stuff with Mike today, unless Mike is super curious and has a couple questions for me, which is always cool. But we were big, Mike, on this these new Berkowitz writings, and I had sent you the 57 pages of writings that Neo had found for us, and but this just recently came across my desk, and I thought, and of course, it blew me away. And once again, it brings up more questions. And of course, this is Berkowitz's handwriting. And what does it say? It says death and destruction, terror and horror, blood and bullets, the horrors of hell. And then it says here, more milk. It's almost like, wait, what the fuck was this? Was this a shopping list?
Grocery list.
Yeah, grocery list, right. But and then that cadence and that way of writing reminded me of something. What did it remind me of? Well, the Breslin letter. And on the envelope of the Breslin letter, of course, is the four lines, which are written in the exact same cadence: blood and family, darkness and death, absolute depravity, 44. And so I know that this is just the first time you're seeing this, Mike, but I'm just curious, like, what were your opinions of the Son of Sam letters? Did you think that Berkowitz wrote them, or like what was your thoughts on the Breslin and the Borelli letter?
I don't know. I thought he did write them, to be honest, initially, and then I thought reading that one of the Carl brothers had some kind of artistic. He was like a graphic designer, and his handwriting was supposedly, like artistic and all that stuff. And then the way the letters looked a little bit like visually, it looked
Right.
like somebody trying to be,
graphic artist.
graphic to it. So I don't know. To be honest, I can't tell. To be honest, I don't know.
Right. I mean, I was always of the opinion that let me just take this off so I can be seen a little bit better. I was always of the opinion that he didn't write them because, very clearly in Maury's Ultimate Evil, he talks about that very issue. He writes about how he spoke to a handwriting analysis and a guy who can analyze writing, and the guy said if you gave him a million pieces of paper, he'd never be able to do it. But here we have in his handwriting the same exact cadence and rhythm and almost the same words as found in the Breslin letter. So this is just another example of why I think that we as a Son of Sam community really, really need to start thinking a little bit outside of the box on this. But let's get to the heart of the matter, Mike, because we don't have all night, of course, and everybody in this audience is dying to hear what we have to say or what you have to say. And I really want this to be the Mike show, really, because, well, a couple reasons. One, I know nothing about the process and Son of Sam other than what I read in Maury's book, which I do not believe, and other than what I experienced walking the streets of Yonkers for a year, which is we never found one person who could corroborate that an outside group came into Untermyer Park, or force the hand of David Berkowitz in any way. But that might have just meant that we didn't meet the person who knew about it. So I don't want to really interject my opinions too much. I kind of want to hear what you have to say and, ask a few pertinent questions here and there. But I guess the first question I would say is, how did you come to first hear of the process, and when did this all sort of come into your radar, especially vis-a-vis Son of Sam. And don't worry, take your time, start from the beginning. Everybody's going to be hanging on your every word.
So I think most of the guys that follow you, Manny, they probably saw our interview initially a while ago. So I guess I'll repeat at least
Please.
the main
No,
aspect.
repeat it all, because you can't assume that everybody here saw that. Probably a lot of people didn't.
Okay, so I was in the missing person squad. This is going back, I think, to like 1997, and I got a call from an inmate named John Lentini. He was in Attica State Prison. And he had said on the phone that he had information on Eton Pates, although he pronounced the name wrong, but I knew who he meant. And he said he had information regarding Eton Pates and Eton Pates' disappearance. For the people that don't know who Eton Pates is, it was a very high-profile missing person child in 1979. He was walking to the bus stop. The mother, for the first time, he was going to school by himself. The mother was watching him out the window. She turned her head for just a few seconds, and the kid disappeared. Eton Pates disappeared. And it became such a famous case, or so high profile, that Ronald Reagan actually made May 25th Eton Pates National Missing Child Day.
Really? That's quite coincidental. We're only 2 days away from that.
Yeah, and he was the first child put on milk cartons or milk containers. His picture and the information.
Yeah, it was huge. I remember I was 6 years old when that happened, and no, 6 years old when that happened, and so I was conscious, and I remember, kind of like that happening.
They were all over the. I used to take the bus to Flatbush Avenue YMCA. I was, I don't know, 14, 15 maybe, and their posters were everywhere, all over every bus, every pole, everything. But in any event, so this guy Tiny Lentini calls me from Attica and tells me he got information on Eton Pates. I make arrangements. I go up to see him with another detective, and he goes into this elaborate story on how he was a vice president of a motorcycle gang called the Rat Pack, and the Rat Pack was a 1% gang under another bigger motorcycle gang. I don't remember if it was the Hells Angels, the Pagans, or whatever, but it was a 1% gang. And I had that verified of who they were, and they've been around since like the 50s. And anyway, he was a vice president at the time, and him and his gang gets contracted to do this security around these mansions up in Yonkers and Westchester, and they wear their colors, and they're there to keep the police away and to keep any interference from any pain in the asses that want to go and see what's going on in these mansions.
Right. Did he say where in Yonkers?
I don't know. I don't think he never gave us a legitimate a hard address.
Okay.
He described like where the blocks were, and and some of the houses more in Westchester. We were able to get a grip of where we think he was talking about. But again, a lot of the names he gave us. Well, he mostly knew nicknames or first names, and he didn't have last names, and that's kind of understandable, especially because the actions going on in the house were nefarious actions, and they wouldn't want their names to be out there. So, of course, everybody uses nicknames. But in any event, he gives us that information.
And we're talking about the killing of children here. That's what we're discussing.
Yeah, and even before that, just the crazy drugs going on and the outward sex going on, and just things that normal wouldn't be going on in most normal people's houses or your neighbor's house. But eventually he gets in good with these people that own these houses or running these parties, and he's allowed to go in and out when his biker guys hang out outside. Him and the president of the biker gang, a guy with the nickname Pushcart, whose name I did know, I don't remember it right now. Him and Pushcart are allowed to go inside and partake in whatever activities are going on, meaning the drugs, the rock and roll, the sex, everything. At one point during one of these gatherings, he goes in and he sees them bring a little boy onto a makeshift altar. They measure the little boy with a rope, and they say some kind of prayers over him. And according to him, he takes himself out. He doesn't see it, but according to him, he later learns and he surmises is one of the reasons why he leaves, because he knows what's going to happen. They sacrifice his kid, and he says the kid is the missing boy, Eton Pates.
Right. And he had mispronounced the name, so that kind of like lent a little bit of credence to it. Like he didn't prepare or right.
He didn't have it like all his ducks in a row, basically. He didn't say the name right. He didn't have the year the kid was missing, like he didn't have everything as if ultimately prepared to tell a lie. I mean, that's the way
right. So everybody, real quick, I'm having issues with the chat in my restream, so I can't like put up the like I'm having issues, but I'm looking at the chat in YouTube. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to put up questions on the screen, but I will ask the good questions that I see. And also, everybody, I did put a link in the chat because for some reason I can post to the chat. I'm just not seeing it in my studio link here. We are going to take calls a little later. Okay, so you can call in and ask Mike any question you want. So Dave had a question. What year was this taking place? Now, Dave, I'm not sure what he meant. Did he mean what year were these rituals taking place? I think that's what he meant.
He said he started. Tiny Lentini, the inmate, said he started from the mid to late 70s, and it lasted up until the early 80s.
The early 80s. Okay.
Yeah. Well, he gets arrested in 83 for sodomizing his children, and he goes to jail in 83. So he said up until the early 80s. So he maybe means until he got arrested or right before that, but that's what he said.
Now you had dealt with Tiny on another case of a woman found dead in Queens that actually did corroborate out, correct?
Well, he we needed corroboration from his stories because he gave us a lot of information. And you got to remember, I met him once. I went up there, and I had several phone calls with him, like 2 or 3 calls. So he gave us the initial visit. He was really all over the place, like I hate to say guys are intelligent because everybody says like, oh, that maniac was really smart, but he was a killer or that. Or I hate to use that phrase, but he really had a lot of information in his head. And this is before the internet. So it wasn't like he went to the internet and read up on stuff and then spit it out at me or, he just had a lot of information on the tip of his fingers, whether it pertained to him and his biker gang and the crimes they did, or pertain to other stuff. Like when I spoke to you, I think, or somebody recently or a while ago, actually, it dawned on me. He was even talking about the Bilderberg group.
Yeah, you had mentioned that to me. No one knew about that in the 70s.
I didn't know about it till a couple of years ago.
Till the internet, right? Exactly. We all learned about that stuff from Alex Jones.
Yeah, and the other group, where Alex Jones infiltrated the
Bohemian Grove.
He was talking about that, and he didn't call it the Bilderberg group, but he described exactly what it was and who was there. And
wow,
one of these high priests, or one of these high priests, was involved, and all these money people. So he knew about a lot of stuff. That's why I said that. And he wasn't. I don't know if that was in any books back then, maybe, but I don't know. But in any event, he did have a lot of information on hand. So regarding the female, the DOA female, that was one of the things that we corroborated. We asked him to give us something some stuff that we could definitely prove.
Right.
You got to remember, he wanted to get out of jail on bail.
Mm-hmm.
Not bail. I'm sorry, on parole.
Parole.
Right. He wanted to get out on parole. We would have liked to have gotten him out on parole and had him work for us. So I don't know. At this point, this was in the 90s. He probably wouldn't be able to do much for us anyway, because everybody was gone probably or dead. But in any event, so we were actually trying to get this guy out. I wanted him to give me something where I could say, bring it to a district attorney and say, look at this information he gave us. It pans out. Let's get this guy out of, let him make parole. But in any event.
But what would be the advantage to him making parole? He would then help you more?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been part of a stipulation where he would have been
part of the deal. Okay.
Right.
All right.
And then if he didn't, they would have violated his parole and put him back.
That was my only question. I was like, well, all right, he gets out. What's he going to do? He's going to go up to Canada. He's going to go. Yeah.
I mean, he could have done that too, but that, then they would have violated him.
They would have violated him. Right. Right.
Um,
So There's a quick question here from did Tiny Lentini ever refer to Connecticut or Mr. Ben Rose? And
Um,
of
uh,
course, Rothstein has Ben Rose at the abduction of
right.
Eton
Yeah.
Pates.
Tiny gave us. I think he gave us Ben Rose at the abduction, and or Ben Rose. I'm trying to get. I'm a little. He had another guy uh, whose family owned a pharmacy for many years up in the Upper East Side.
That's Rose.
Right.
Edlick Pharmacy.
Okay, there it goes. Right, Rose,
Yeah,
and he had, and the Rose wasn't the Hunchback though, correct?
No, he was.
Oh,
He
okay.
was known as Quasimodo.
Right, right. He's one
Right.
of the guys supposedly involved with the initial taking of the kid of Eton Pates. According
So
to
that would that if true, right? This actually all kind of pans out because in my mind, because you have Ben Rose connected through this operation together and the gay underground connected with all these other child traffickers and pedophiles who are connected then to Ace Brown,
right,
who you interviewed, who is of course the Hinge, the Yonkers connection. And so this is highly interesting stuff. And so let's so how do we get from there, of course, to the process?
well,
And take it slow, take it slow.
yeah,
I'm soaking this up.
yeah. Well, basically, he gave us this female that was killed in the park, and it did pan out. So
Okay.
that was one piece of hard evidence he gave us. We found the 61, which is the police report. We found the actual police report, which was hard to find. All the precincts have been changed. The precinct areas had changed, and it was a long time.
Right.
There was no arrest on it, but in any event, I had a civilian that worked in one police plaza, and they were able to manually find this report. On the
Right.
report, the first one of I think the only person possibly interviewed regarding this female's death, because what they had actually was a female DOA in Forest Hills Park. That's what they had. They interview somebody, and the person they interview is this guy Pushcart. And
Okay.
his statement basically was, "Yeah, I seen this girl in the park. I think he said he didn't know who she was, but he's seen her in the park." But
Mhm.
according to Tiny, Pushcart is the one that actually killed her.
Oh, okay. So he named Pushcart without knowing that Pushcart had been interviewed about this and spoke to
Probably
you
not
guys.
knowing that Pushcart had been interviewed. Right.
So
Exactly.
that's even more corroborating,
And he
possibly.
said that the female had a tattoo on her back of her son. He didn't know. He didn't know it was the son. He said the female had a tattoo on her back of a guy. I think he said of a guy's name, and it was her son. And back then, a lot of females didn't have. Not many females had tattoos.
Right, exactly.
So he gave, and he couldn't pin down exactly where she was, but they did. It was she was found in the snow, just like he said she was discarded, basically in the snow. And in any event, everything he said basically about that homicide was true. So
Right.
he gave us some, he gave us some other stuff that was pretty concrete.
So in other words, why then would he be lying about Pates? I mean, he was probably telling the truth about Pates.
I mean, if it could have been Pace, it could have been another kid. It could have been
Right,
maybe
right,
it didn't happen at all. It could have been obviously another blonde hair kid, and maybe he assumed, because I remember talking to him about the posters being all over the neighborhood, and he remembered that also. So,
right.
who knows? But he gave us that anyway. Getting back to your process question, he said that the satanic involvement was the process church. The people.
He called it straight up. He said, "This is the process church of the final judgment."
Yes, I don't know if he gave me the whole name, but yeah.
Whole name.
Right.
Okay. And
And
so
he eventually becomes a high priest and Pushkar also in that church.
in the process,
Right. According to him. Right.
according to him. Interesting, because listen, I gotta eventually speak to a like an expert just in the process. Forget about just like, would they take in a Tiny Lentini at Pushcart? I mean, I don't know. I have no clue. But it just makes me wonder. But so he also, of course, named this Carlton Gaju sect. Did he call him by his name, or did he
He didn't even call him. I forgot what nickname he did give him.
Moloch?
Moloch. There you go. But he
Right.
said he was a doctor, and he had said that he adopted a bunch of kids from Micronesia, and to be honest, I didn't even know
Yeah,
where that was at the time. I never heard of that country. And
that's
he
pretty
said,
damn corroborating.
yeah, and he said he gave her like an outstanding number, like he adopted 50 kids or 50 boys, and
That was it.
he gave.
But then again, I wonder though, just him naming 50 boys, I wonder though, it almost sounds though as if he read it though. Because how would he know 50? Because that's like the exact number, like 52, 53, right?
I
Which was
don't know.
all over the newspapers. So I just wonder, like, if he knew, like, because,
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's a
mean,
lot, unless the guy had no qualms about telling people.
right, right. Well,
Right?
he didn't seem to. He was actually filmed and videotaped with all these kids around him, with his arms around them, like all happy and smiling. I mean, the guy was a sick guy. Real quick on the just on this whole Queens and finding women dead bit. We did this. I don't know if you know, but we recently you did a video, an interview with my boy, New York City Crime Spot,
Yeah.
and him and I went out and did a video on the curious case of Leslie Zaret, who was found in 1974 in Bayside, right by the Eliphas Disco. In fact, in a school playground, and she was dead, and she had been manipulated, and there was a hairbrush, unfortunately, and a hairbrush inserted inside her. We're not going to get too graphic, but in The Ultimate Evil, Maury Terry writes about how Berkowitz witnessed this, that he knew about the hairbrush, and the hairbrush part was never made public. And I just wonder if that had anything, I mean, not that you would know, but I just wonder if that would have anything to do with these other Queens incidents. It's just something that I'm very curious about, because Berkowitz got out of the army in 74. And in my Son of Sam research, I am personally, this is just me, I'm coming to the conclusion that Son of Sam actually started in 74 with the, not 76, with the Netto attacks, because those started in July of 74. And I'm going to do a whole video on this. We don't have to get into it now, but somebody should ask Berkowitz about Zaret. I mean, it's just one of these things that I'm very curious about. So, all right. So Tiny Lentini mentions the process.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm going to be a little tough because I want to really suss this out. The biggest thing that's dividing the Son of Sam world right now is two things. Did Berkowitz act alone, or did he work with others? That's always divided people, but it's dividing the Son of Sam world now too, because of the research that we did. It's looking like, from some of the research we did, that he might not have been working with many people or anybody at all. That's just a possibility. But the other thing that really divides people, and it's one of the reasons why my life has been made hell the last 6 months, is because of this process stuff. It's like a religious thing. People believe in this whole notion of the process guiding Son of Sam, almost as if it's a religious deity that they worship. And I'm agnostic about it. I believed in it when I was a big Maury Terry fan. As I learned more about Maury Terry, the man, and all his inaccuracies in the book, I became a big time skeptic of it. And of course, we never found actual proof. But so I'm thinking here, all right, this is great. Tiny Lentini's talking about the process, being a high priest in the process, and that has to do with Gajusek and possibly Eton Pates. Where do we come in with Berkowitz and Son of Sam? Like, how does it, what actual proof is there?
The only connection Berkowitz, Tiny has to Berkowitz is, and again, this is according to Tiny, is that, and again, I don't remember, I'm not sure. First, I got to preface this by saying I had notes, not specific notes. Not, I shouldn't say specific, not super detailed, because I'm talking and I'm not writing, to be honest.
Right.
They all went down in the World Trade Center. So
you didn't even record it? You didn't record it?
I didn't record it.
Okay.
It may have, maybe the detective recorded it, but for sure I didn't record it. I as a supervisor, to be honest, the police department doesn't really even want supervisors going on cases like this. This is a job for a detective, and when a detective come back, the sergeant reads the report and signs it. He gives it back. This is misspelled, or this is no good, or this paragraph sounds like crap. But I'm not. I don't like to sit on my ass and not do anything. So I would, I like to go get involved. I like to be there. That's the bottom line. As far as the notes taken, I didn't take many notes, but little notes I did take went down in my office when was in the World Trade Center when that went down. So this is basically off the top of my head. Now,
Okay.
According to Tiny, and again, it might be when I saw him in person, or it might be on one of the several phone calls, because you got to remember he was looking to get out on parole, so he would call and how we making out. That's what are we? How you doing? Does it look good? I got more information. Let me tell you about this. So I don't know where it came in, but at some point he said that he saw Berkowitz at one of these, not at one of the parties, not at one of the big parties, but at some kind, I think in the park, or something having to do with Yonkers. He remembers him in passing. Not that they were friendly, not that they had in-depth conversations, but according to him, he remembers Berkowitz in passing.
So he sees him at a party,
or sees him at some kind of function. I don't know.
Or sees him at some kind of function.
One of these heavy duty parties, or just
right
function. But he does see Berkowitz, and I don't know if he had a conversation with him, but he remembers Berkowitz from one of these functions.
And all right, and even if true, like, what is it? What can we glean from that? What connections can we actually make in the real world from that? Because like I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mike, but I'm just trying to pin this down. The Son of Sam world has been talking about this for 40 something odd years, ever since Maury's book came out, 30 something years, and the process. And of course, people think I'm in the process. I mean, it's ridiculous. They think that I'm shilling for the process. I couldn't care less about the process, guys. I mean, if they were involved, I want to know. If they weren't, I want to just throw it away. I mean, because like I always say, if Maury had said the Jetsons were involved, I'd be questioning if the Jetsons were involved. It has nothing to do with the process. But anyway, this is really something that divides us. And as a person who actually wants peace and wants to bring people together, I know that some people don't believe that about me, but that's actually the truth. I would like to extend an olive branch to those who really, really believe in this process. But I personally need more proof than, just words out of a book. And now it's sounding like it's just the word of Tiny Lentini possibly seeing David Berkowitz at a meeting. What? Give me more.
All right. So let me think. What he said about. Okay. Now Tiny gave us information. The first in person. This was in person when we saw him, about one of his biker associates, who did a Son of Sam like shooting over in Cypress, borderline Brooklyn, Queens.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was in Cypress Park or right off the intro. I'm a little bit familiar with the area because I used to take for people in Brooklyn. I used to take Pennsylvania Avenue up into the Interborough Parkway and end up in Ridgewood, Queens. And Tiny's biker gang actually had a clubhouse in Ridgewood, Queens.
Okay.
Which is borderline Brooklyn. Some people call it Brooklyn, Queens, but Ridgewood is actually, I think, Queens, but it's borderlands. And it's not far from Williamsburg and Knickerbocker Avenue. But anyway, they had a clubhouse there. Tiny gave us, to verify some of his information, or to rather substantiate some of the stuff he gave us one of his black biker guys, according to him, who did a Son of Sam type killing.
What year? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I'm assuming it was in the late 70s or mid to late 70s.
So it was during the Son of Sam spree, or
I believe it was after.
After, okay.
Yeah, I believe it was after, but not long after. If I'm correct, it wasn't long after. But it was never investigated as a Son of Sam shooting. And I don't remember if the victims died or they were just shot. It was a male, female in the car, either kissing or having sex or whatever they were doing. and the guy who did the shooting, the black biker gang, it was never investigated as a Son of Sam style shooting because the victims were black.
Right.
Berkowitz only shot, as far as we know, white victims.
White victims, right.
So it was never, according to Tiny, it never made the papers, it never got any kind of publicity. And he assumed that, I guess, makes sense that because they were black and the neighborhood it was in, they never associated it with a Son of Sam killing.
Right. See,
So-
that actually, oh, sorry. Just as an aside, that's another avenue that I'm very interested in. Like, in 1976 and 77, what, there were 3,000 murders a year. How do we know that all the Son of Sam shootings were actually Son of Sam shootings? And how do we know that there weren't more Son of Sam shootings after Berkowitz? It's like these questions, they just come up, like as to a person who, like me, who just, thinks very outside the box. So he brings up this shooting, and so what else does he say?
Well, we go and interview the biker, the black, his black biker associate.
Okay.
And Tiny tells us Tiny even gives us a way that we could even get him to admit to that shooting. And the way he tells us is this particular biker was playing basketball. Now, this has nothing to do with the Son of Sam shooting, but this is how Tiny said we could get him to flip, which we did. The biker is in a basketball game in, I think, Brownsville or Bed-Stuy, and he gets in an argument with one of the guys he's playing basketball with. He goes to his car, he takes out a gun, and he shoots the guy in front of a whole park full of people. He never gets arrested for that, never gets investigated. He never gets implicated in that at all, the biker. But Tiny knows it happened.
Right.
So when we go to interview him, I go there with a fake folder full of nonsense. Of course, he doesn't know it's full of nonsense. And I tell him I got a bunch of witnesses in here that now there's no statute of limitations, obviously, for homicide. I said, I have a bunch of witnesses in here that saw you do this homicide in this park in Brownsville. And when I said that, he was dumbfounded. He thought that was
right.
an easy homicide. He was never going to. So I said, we're going to let this homicide go away if you tell me about the other homicide or the other shooting, meaning the Son of Sam shootings.
Right.
And he does. And he gives me two statements. He gives me the statement for the basketball shooting, and then he gives me the statement for the Son of Sam style killings or shootings. So,
and but where does the process come into this? Because I'm always trying to relate this back to Son of Sam and the process.
Well, according to Tiny, the reason it was done was on behalf of the process and the same motive which they had. And the motive, every time he told me, I could never get my head around it. But according to Tiny, their whole objective was just to start mayhem in the city, like either a race war or just pure mayhem. And the way they were going to do that, according to Tiny, is to do these random shootings. To me, it doesn't make sense, but according
it doesn't make sense, because if nobody knew these two were shot, then how's it going to start a race war in New York City? Right? Well, you said that this shooting.
I think they intended it to get noticed that there were shootings. Not only not necessarily a race war, although that's what he said, but just pure terror in New York City is kind of what Tiny was talking about.
Right.
With Berkowitz's shootings and with this black guy and the process in general. That's what they were looking to do.
Right. So so that was the first time you had ever heard, and this was what year that you were talking to him about this? 96?
It's 96, 97, yeah.
So before this time, Mike, had you ever heard of the process and Son of Sam with any actual like actionable proof? Did you ever hear it from your police friends? Did you ever hear of rumor? Anything other? Did you even read it out of? Did you even know of Maury Terry's book at that point, or did you? Or
I don't even think I read his. No, in fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't read his book at that time.
Right. So you weren't predisposed. You didn't already know about the process and Son of Sam when you first saw Lentini. It just came up, and he specifically said the process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's interesting. I'm just still trying to figure out though, like where's the connect? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to think like a detective now. I'm not a detective. I was not trained, but I figure it's probably the same as somewhat of being a journalist. You want to know the who, what, where, why, and when. And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out here. It's so easy for people who are in the process camp, people who believe in this, just to say, yeah, the process did it. But I'm working on a different level here. I want to know who. I want to know when. I want to know when did they meet with Berkowitz? What all of this stuff I need to know. That's the only way I'm going to be convinced. I need to know.
I mean, I've given it some thought in general in the past, um, and like most, like and other people know that I was told by the NYPD to stop the investigation
Correct.
when we were going to go up and talk to Berkowitz. Not that he would have spoke to us.
Right.
We were just going to kind of go up cold and talk to him. But in any event, if my opinion of the whole involvement with the process with Berkowitz, with the Carr brothers, I think that I don't doubt that there was some kind of satanic stuff going on. And I don't doubt that they called it the Process Church. That doesn't necessarily mean they were the Process Church. I don't. In other words, I wouldn't be surprised if there were a bunch of young guys and girls that maybe read about the Process Church and were following their code. Let's just say, for argument's sake, whatever code that is. The people in the house, they were really into the sex and the drugs, as far as I'm concerned, and the satanic shit was just an easy way to bring in more people,
Right.
attract a whole nother entity to their parties.
Right, to make their drug and sex soiree to have it like to give it legitimacy. We're
Right,
here under a satanic ritual. We're
right,
practicing religion. Yeah.
right. And I think some of them were legitimately into it. And I think if that Eton Page story is true, or whatever kid that was, I think that's a whole part of it. But I also it's also very possible that they didn't not everyone took it that serious. And that's why when you go out asking people in Yonkers, they may not know that there was, I don't know, 10 kids and 10, I say kids, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 10 kids involved with this stuff. And it wasn't
Right.
like an out, it wasn't the biggest. Yet, if you go to Westchester, maybe those rich people were really, maybe not super involved, but how would the kids from Yonkers, how would a regular John Doe from Yonkers know about these rich people in Westchester?
Well, that's been my question since day one, because Maury Terry would have us believe that Berkowitz was hanging out with Roy Cohn in his mansion in Connecticut, and he was involved with all of these sex traffickers on the gay underground, working with the mob. And I just say to myself, when did he have time to do all this? He was working 4 to 12 at the post office. He had no friends. The only friends he had was shunned him, and we interviewed all of them. So I'm not just saying that because I read it somewhere. They all thought that he came back from the army completely messed up in the head, and they didn't want to have anything to do with him. And in fact, a couple of them chased him after an arson fire. So like so I just am trying to think about this logically, and I just don't see the social connections there. I don't see rich people hanging out with Berkowitz and John Carr. I just don't see it. But maybe you know something I don't. Maybe you're aware of some connections. Maybe.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not aware of anything so clandestine, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, if the cars could get their hands on cocaine, on whatever
Mhm.
they were using, I don't know, pot, I don't know, if that was their thing, or coke, or whatever they were doing. If Berkowitz could get his hand on that, then he'd be the guy to invite to a party up in Westchester. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's not to me. That's not unusual. If a guy like the Hinge, what the hell's his name?
Yeah, Ace Brown.
Yeah, if Ace Brown
The
get his
Hinge.
hand on kids and guys in Westchester like little boys, then that's the guy you get that's the guy you bring to the party. And when Ace Brown gets to the party and he sees satanic shit there, he's not going to leave because he's into kids, he's into coke.
Right, right.
I mean, I don't, I don't. In my opinion, it may not. It's very possible that it wasn't a pure offshot of the Process Church. Again, I wouldn't doubt if they had some knowledge of it. Maybe some people well versed or well read, but it was enough to get. I mean, Tiny, according to him, he became like a high priest. But look at his record. He's in jail for pedophilia, having sex with kids.
Yeah, I mean his own infant daughter. In fact, I mean that's about as sick as it gets.
Not only that, the woman he marries years later, after he gets out of jail, years later he marries a woman. They want to take her kid. They have a baby, or they were gonna have a baby. As soon as she has the kid, the state of Pennsylvania takes the kid away from her because she's living with Tiny, who's a known pedophile. But aside from that, her first husband was also arrested for pedophilia.
Jeez, she has terrible taste in men.
Yeah, she has a particular kind of
she has a type.
Right. But that's so there's Tiny's attraction to that whole that whole group, so to speak, if that's
right. I just want to let the audience know if anyone wants to call in, now is a great time because we've kind of reached a point where I'm grilling the hell out of Mike, and I actually feel bad about it. I don't want to put my friend on the spot here, but I'm trying to find out who from the process put the gun in Berkowitz's hand because that's what we need to find out. So I'm going to ask the $1 million questions at the end, but we have a couple people in the audience here. And of course, the first one is the great Gary.
Oh, I'm first. Oh boy. No, just real quick. I just wanted to meet Mike and basically thank him for his incredible career. My God, Mike.
Thank you, bro.
I mean, the only question I really had, which I'm sure I know the answer. I mean, Mike, your deep gut feeling if Berkowitz was involved with the process, but I'm sure I know the answer.
No, don't answer for him. Let him answer. Don't say I'm sure, okay. Gary. We don't want to, we don't know what he's going to say. But just ask the question.
In your gut, no professional capacity, just your gut.
If he was involved with the process, my gut tells me that there were more than one shooters in the Son of Sam killings. That's what my gut tells me. How involved the satanic stuff was, I think Berkowitz was and not in a good way, but to use the only expression I could think of, was a lost soul, so to speak, and he would put his hooks into anybody that would be his friend. And I think if there were people practicing satanic stuff, they would be the same way, and they would want anybody involved that they could get involved. And if that meant proving yourself by going out and doing a shooting, or listen, we were all young and we were all wild. I know nothing like that, obviously, but you get in the car with people and they want to do something stupid, and Berkowitz might have been the guy that they could tell, he's in the car, we'll get him to do a shooting. Or, you know what, you got to go do this shooting and prove yourself to us. I could see him being manipulated. Again,
I could actually see that. I could actually see that too. But the question I always have, it comes down to logistics. Like, Maury said that the Son of Sam crimes were born out of a meeting in Mr. Real Estate's house, a guy named James P. Donovan up in Purchase, New York. And that at this meeting were high-level process people, international cultists, members of the process, and David Berkowitz. It just doesn't seem like socially they would hang out. But all right, I get it. Maybe they would. Maybe he was there. But how many people know about these plots, and how come no one's spoken?
Well, maybe he wasn't there, Manny. Maybe
Well, Maury has him there. Maury, and yeah, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I know, but Maury has him there, and Berkowitz said he was there, and this is the level of proof that a lot of people find acceptable, which I don't, and that this is what makes me the lightning rod in the Son of Sam community, because I'm willing to challenge these things, whereas a lot of people aren't. I just don't see that many people keeping a secret. In your experience, Mike, as a rough,
No,
hard edged.
I agree. I don't. People have a tendency to talk. I mean, that's just human nature.
Right. Not one person except for Tiny Lentini has talked up to this point.
Right.
Well,
And
and the black guy that did the other shooting.
right.
But remember, how many guys were actually pressured? Guys talk when they get pressured, or
Right.
the cop. Not to knock the PD, but they made a collar and it was over. That's John Santucci, right? He didn't think it was over.
Right.
But he couldn't pick up the ball and go with it. But people aren't going to talk unless they're pressured. I mean, that's that's generally.
Mike, would it be? This is my feeling. I mean, would it be a stretch to say that maybe Berkowitz just got some drugs casually from some of these people, and that was really the extent of it? I mean, that to me seems about as far as it could have gone.
And did what? Got drugs from who?
Well, drugs from some, not so much processed people, but maybe some of the people who were part of the rituals, because I'm sure they were also involved in drugs. So maybe that was the extent of
absolutely.
it. He just got some drugs from these people, and that was it.
Absolutely. I buy that he, either they got drugs from him or he scored from them, and
because judging from the letters that Manny got a hold of recently, that's the mind of somebody who's on drugs. So I would imagine that he continued with the drugs, and maybe that's where he got the drugs after the army.
It's possible. I mean, it's all speculative, though. That's the thing that I mean, it's fun to talk about, but like I'm now at I'm like, I need the person who put the gun in Berkowitz's hand. That's what I need.
Right.
Let's get Gary. Let's get the next. Gary, you can stick around, but
Okay.
we have a venerable person here. We have someone who I am sure that all 128 people watching right now are going to be very happy to see.
Can I make a bet so I can make some money?
No, because you could see this guy already on the screen.
No, I can't.
Oh, you can't? Okay,
No.
all right. Well, all right. Well, then you do the intro. Then you figure out who it is.
All right. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna look bad.
Okay,
everyone. Here he is. The one, the only. That's my main expression. Eric.
Yeah, you got it right.
Oh.
Give that man a gold medal.
I just won $2.
All right, Gary. Let's let Eric.
Found the first edition of your hardcover, Mike. If I ever meet you one day, the autograph. Now, Manny, I'm going to read something so you don't think I'm going against you. You know how my mind works. I don't compartmentalize, but I accept everything except for the insanity. Recently, Sheldon Krimsky died. Here's what he said, and this compliments you. Because skepticism is not cynicism, nor is it somebody saying, get out of here, I don't want to hear this. When claims are made, you have to start with skepticism until the evidence is so strong that your skepticism disappears. You don't in science start by saying, yes, I like this hypothesis and it must be true. So I read that to you so you don't misunderstand me, Manny. You know me well.
Eric, we're beyond that.
Right. Mike, you've set me on a high. This is, I mean, what you've just spoken about today has made my mind work and work and work and work. Returning to the process church of the final judgment, I asked this question first. Let's stay with them. Why did they leave England? What is the true meaning for them leaving England? And I'm going to name this guy. I talked to you about him, Manny. He's very erudite. He was known as Juxtaposition Stories. He knows more about money and finance than anybody you could speak of. He has his own shows now, influenced by me, Thomas Morris. The money. Without the money, how does the process church, which then in Louisiana becomes the process church of the final judgment, And here we get into intelligence. The lawyer, I don't know if you knew this, Mike, the lawyer who gave them the new name and incorporated them in America was Tommy Jude Baumler, who worked in the office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation agent Guy Bannister.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
he became what's known as a wandering bishop, sacramentally valid but an errant priest. This is a phenomenon.
Right.
So
That's all in Lavenda's books.
that's how Tiny Lentini could have ended. But this is the thing. Where do they get the money? Where do the bikers get the money? Now, if you go back to Altamont, where the bikers supposedly arranged this big rock and roll concert with the Rolling Stones and everybody, and they were so great in parting the waves. Come on, they didn't arrange it. Somebody else did it, and somebody else hired them. And that's what goes on here, and that's what Hank Chinotti had found. These guys were involved with all sorts of crime. They have to maintain their livelihood also. People seem to look at them as kind of biker bohemians who, it's a big mystery, the whole thing with the process church. Now, about Berkowitz, I think it's very simple that if Berkowitz had the same interests as a lot of, I thought that was for me, Manny. If Berkowitz had interests that were the same as very wealthy people and elites, despite the difference of class and finance, people with the same interests, just like congregating in a church, meet. Now, I'm not an academic, and I knew Thomas Molnar, a great philosopher. I went and spent 3 hours with him. I've known the very wealthy at Belhaven because I knew one family there. Politicians in Italy, the Vatican, an Italian senator who was close to Roberto Calvi when I lived in Rome. If you have an interest and you have a particular personality, I never intended to meet these people. It just happens with me. So that's how Berkowitz could have actually, I'm just putting this forth for food for food for thought. This is how these people, Berkowitz could have met all these people.
It's definitely possible, Mike.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to what I said. At least I think that's what we're talking about. Is if first of all, their interests are way off the chart. So to get the few people that have the same interests are few and far between. Even to bring something like that up, even to bring that you're interested in the satanic cult or interested in little boys or whatever the case is, you could easily be shunned and worse. So if you have that interest, you're going to look, it's like a heroin addict that's trying to go clean, and they pack them up and they move them to Albuquerque, New Mexico. That heroin addict is going to find a bunch of junkies there where he's going to be able to get dope with and get high with.
So you understand that's my whole point.
Yep.
Mike, Manny, I think Mike doing the show with Mike, the whole thing is blown open again.
I'm not so sure about that. With all due respect to my man, Mike.
Yeah, this is.
I'm not hearing anything here that's convincing me. I mean, I don't want to be the contrarian.
I read to you what Chris said about skepticism. That's why I read this to you.
Well, listen, I've always been willing to entertain it. And listen, who the hell am I anyway? I mean, I'm a guy who picked up a camera last year, went out for a walk, and all of a sudden, all of this blew up around me. I didn't have anything to do with that. But so my word means nothing against to any over anyone else's. I just don't see it. We have Tiny Lentini talking about the black guy in Queens and the parties with Gajusek and possibly seeing Berkowitz, but we're not sure. There's nothing concrete there for me.
No, that's why you got to put it in a folder and refer to it if anything else comes up.
But Mike, listen, we're buds, and I don't want you to be angry at me for disagreeing with you here. But I'm just haven't heard anything that
I couldn't get angry, Manny, because I don't have a definitive. If I thought for sure I had the answers, and you were disagreeing with me, maybe I'd get angry. But I don't claim to have the answers. Believe me.
Well, if you had the answer, if you had the actual answers, like we'd be hearing more,
I had the actual
convincing stuff.
answers.
Mike,
If I had the actual answers, other people would be in handcuffs.
Right, and you'd be right, exactly, and you would have had a major documentary and book deal.
Right.
Did you ever, in your police work? In fact, let's get Eric and Gary. Are you guys done?
I want to say one thing to Mike. Mike, when did you start on the force? Because in the 70s or 80s?
1983.
Okay. Before that, there were these racial crimes, black and white, both. That's what gave Hank Chinotti's brother Anthony a breakdown, and it led to things having him leave the force. There were 4 colleagues of his near Shea Stadium shot dead by black revolutionaries. There were these racial wars underground taking place that the media hid. Anyway, for me, Mike, you've blown open so much, but I still don't discard you, Manny. You know how my mind works.
Listen, I love debate. I love discussion as long as everything's respectful and above board. People always should know that the only time I've ever deleted comments or anything like that is when people were just straight up disrespectful. But I'm actually changing that in my new iteration of my video series, which I'm going to, again, do a special video on just on that so we don't waste our time. But I'm actually going to not delete any comments anymore. I'm going to let the trolls put up their comments and stand on their own. But you better be prepared because I'm going to be challenging you back. So listen, somebody has their radio on in the background or something. Not quite sure what's going on here. But Gary, I'm going to let you go. All right.
Okay, Manny.
Okay. Thanks.
Right, good meeting you, Mike.
Nice meeting you, Gary.
We'll talk to you soon, Gary. And of course, Eric, you and I will be partying with Hank Chinotti very soon.
Yes, everybody. It's his 80th birthday on Monday. So Angelina is having the birthday party on the 29th of May. Manny and I will meet for the first time. She says, "Oh, I like that young man. You invite him over." But no talk of the son of Sam.
We're not talking about son of Sam.
We're
just going to party with Hank and maybe while all you guys are distracted, I'll go and check out in his drawers and see if there's any files. But yes, we're hanging.
Careful because his cousins put up
surveillance cameras. Yeah, I know. No, there'll be none of that. But it should be interesting. It should be a fun time. So Eric, I want to get Jim in here. So we're gonna let you go, my friend. Okay.
Bye. God bless you, Mike.
Bye.
Okay. So real quick, Mike, thanks so much. I'm sure we still have some more discussion to do because I want to talk about De Grimston and Staten Island and all that kind of stuff and the things about that whole vibe. But we have a guy here, Jim Fay, who you may or may not know. You probably don't because I don't expect you watched every one of my Manny Mondays. You have an actual life, unlike me. But Jim Fay was this guy's amazing. Jim Fay was actually he chased Berkowitz down after an arson in 1974 or 5, I think. Maybe he'll tell the story real quick. And he was on the job, just like you, although he's a little older. And Jim Fay has been an absolute treasure trove of help for us here at I don't even know what I'm calling this right now. We'll just say real-time true crime like the old days. So I just want to bring Jim in because he's such a great guy. And of course, Jim, I know your audio is going to kick ass up. He's got Alphaville.
Yeah.
He's got Alphaville.
I'm on the ball here. I got the book last year for Christmas, and to be honest with you, I haven't gotten around to reading it yet. But
you have to, man. Yeah.
So you're almost on the ball.
Well, yeah. My thing was the Bronx and Ralph Friedman and those guys. So I haven't gotten around to it yet. But now that I know you or met you, I'll do it. The reason I chimed in, by the way, has my audio.
It's great. You must be using
fine.
a Blue Yeti microphone. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, anyway, Mike, I don't know if you know that Manny was able to get a lot of documents from the Yonkers PD regarding it. And one of them we called the Sarassi report. And just for Manny's point that how do you get the gun? It says in there that he got it in Houston, Texas, and he had a middleman buy it for him. at a gun shop, I believe. I just had the page here and I lost it. And he illegally, Berkowitz, transported it up to New York. Here it is. June of '76, a guy by the name of Billy Dan Parker, Texas, purchased the gun at a hock shop in Texas. Now, that question you brought up about how did he get the gun, that for me tells me that despite the process and all this other stuff, and at least initially, this was a freelance operation on Berkowitz's part. I don't think it was all that involved with a lot of other people. The fact that he had to get the gun himself and he used it. And
that's actually a great point that I never even thought of before. Yeah, he got the gun in, according to the official story anyway, he got the gun in Houston. It wasn't a person's putting the gun into his hand. I'm just going to turn on the light here. I'll be right back.
It wasn't like somebody, he met somebody on a dark alley somewhere, like Avenue C and 9th Street, and passed it over to him through a window of a car. The other guy bought it, and he brought it up here. So that's, like you say, it's an interesting point. And just to repeat myself, which I have a habit of doing, it shows that he does not have this organization around him that Maury Terry attempted to put around them. Plus the fact that what we reported, me and John Comparetto, I don't know if you know John, Mike, retired lieutenant from the Drug Task Force.
Yeah, Mike, we had a great portion of our series where we interviewed all of Berkowitz's, or the most that we could find, friends from Co-op City when he was a teenager, right before he went to the Army. We had a whole series on that, which I'm going to put back up online. Again, everybody, I'm going to do a video on why I took the videos down. I am going to be putting them back up. So no worries. It was just something that I had to do for really my mental health and to gain and to gain control back, because it had all gotten away from me, Jim, as you know, from our talks behind the scenes. It had all gotten away from me. And so I needed to do serious retrenching. And so anyway,
you've done a good job with this, and you're entitled to a break. And
I needed it massively. You don't even understand. Anyway, what were we saying before? Oh yeah, so Mike, we had done this whole series with Berkowitz's friends before the Army, and yeah, he was like perfectly normal, nice guy, and he got really messed up in the Army, according to everybody. So I'm sorry, Jim, I had cut you off.
Well, I had a personal meeting with Berkowitz too. This other fellow, John Comparetto, the retired lieutenant, and even I did in the brief meeting that I had with him. As I said in my video, he was on a different wavelength.
What year was that, Jim?
Well, actually, after I did that video, I recalculated the timing on it, and John had been laid off. He got like everybody else. He got laid off in '75, and so he was not on the NYPD, but he was working 4 to 12 for the Rockland County agency where he lived. So it had to be during '75, thereabouts, because he had gotten laid off,
Right. And your impression of Berkowitz was, I mean, nut job.
Yeah. Well, like I said in my video, and I hope Mike can find the time to watch it. It's a little lengthy. Me and John were talking back and forth about our daily routine, and he was coming across with this inappropriate laughter, is how I described it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Subsequently, for Mike's edification, I was a dispatcher in the fire department prior to I was a Port Authority cop. Prior to being a cop, I was a dispatcher in the Bronx. And we had this rash of nuisances, fires, false alarms, car fires, in the 4-3, 4-7, this before the 4-9 precinct, as a matter of fact, the 4-3, 4-9 area. And we were out one night, me and a couple other guys, and we followed them. We followed them for a number of hours until the sun came up, and word got around, and the outcome was that we didn't stop the fires right away, but he knew there were people watching him.
And
Now,
it was Berkowitz because you ran his plates.
yes, we ran at the time for Mike's edification. When we were dispatchers, the marshals, the fire marshals were very busy in the Bronx in those 70s.
Yep.
So we ran plates for them, a lot. So I ran the plate that I got for this particular episode, and on more than one occasion it came up as Berkowitz. So I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version of this, but
And this is interesting too, because this is firsthand oral testimony, important oral history, proving that Berkowitz had a hand in these arsons that we were always. I mean, I don't know about you, Mike, but the arsons, Maury paints them as like fake. That Berkowitz didn't actually do them; that he just wrote stuff down wrote a fire log.
So the fire department.
Right, and but here we have him, Jim, the person who actually chased Berkowitz from fires. So, this is kind of the work we were doing before I took my little break, and it was just highly interesting because it just paints a different picture of this guy Berkowitz, and nowhere do we see him hanging out with elitists.
Right.
Anyway,
he was doing a solo act with the fires. It was always him, and when we and like I was saying in the original video, when I worked midnight dates as a dispatcher, at some point these fires was getting so much out of hand that I would call the companies before they went to them and say, see if you can get a license plate number, or talk to people in the neighborhood, see what you can come up with. And on more than one occasion, Berkowitz's plate came up.
Wow.
And then we had reason to run into him, carryings on in the Bronx in those days, and then we followed him for about 3 or 4 hours, and then through an intermediary, I got a hold of this intermediary and told him, look, we got Berkowitz doing these fires here. What do you know? He said, well, the guy's a nut job. He was in the military and, had problems. I said, well, tell him the fire department's got an eye on him. Don't tell him it was me. But I think somebody did tell him it was me because
your car was firebombed.
Well, it wasn't my car. What happened was I lived are you familiar with the Bronx at all?
A little bit. Yeah,
I lived in Parkchester up there in the 4-3, and while after that was going on, and before he was arrested, obviously before he was arrested for Son of Sam, I'm home one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's a standpipe fire hose, the standpipe hose fire on my floor in my building, right across the hall from where I lived, which I didn't think anything of. And in fact, I didn't even get out of bed. I just heard it on the radio. I said, fuck it, go back to bed. About 2 months later, I'm laying in bed, and my bedroom window lights up with a red glow, and there's a car fully involved across the street. And it was a blue car. I owned a blue car. This is all supposition on my part. But being that I was a dispatcher, I went down. I told the chief. I didn't know the chief, but I knew all the firemen were there. I said, I told him. I said, well, we got this guy Berkowitz and the fires, and he gave me a big argument. So I said, the hell with it. I didn't bother with it anymore. And to be honest with you, I never associated it with Son of Sam or David Berkowitz until Manny brought out the Netto incidents up in Yonkers, where that family was harassed. Right. They killed their dog. They firebombed their house and did all sorts of other things.
Letters, rocks, phone calls.
He didn't even know them. He didn't even know them. So
yeah, he clearly didn't know them. So so that might have been Berkowitz thinking that he was burning down your car.
Well, if nothing else, maybe he knew where I lived, because like he did with the with the cars and the Nettos, he just looked it up in the phone book.
Exactly. And I do want to do a show on that, because we, at the end of one of our meetings, Mike, me, Jim, and a couple other of his law enforcement colleagues, we were doing looking at some of the old pictures and files, and we realized that this guy Berkowitz might have found these names in phone books. The John Carr.
Right.
Definitely John Carr. Yeah, and the guy, and Joaquin Goncarlo from 18 Wicker Street, he misspelled his name, and it was misspelled in the phone book the exact same way. So I'm going to be doing a video on that, but I want to get back to the topic at hand.
Right.
Jim, is that your do you have any other questions?
No, I just wanted to mention about the gun that he got it from Texas, and in my mind that shows a lack of overall organization, bikers and all this other stuff.
I actually think that's a brilliant observation. So Jim, listen, we're gonna talk soon, all right? Because
Very good.
we got a show in us.
Nice
so
meeting you, Mike.
Nice meeting you too. Take care.
I'll carry my book in the car in case I run into you one of these days.
Make sure it don't burn up, though. All right.
Okay, will do.
I like it. All right, thanks, Jim. All right, so Mike, that was some fun oral history, and I want to turn the discussion now to Staten Island and De Grimston and anything you know about, because I think that in terms of Son of Sam and process so far, like I said, I'm not seeing any real connection still. I was hoping that something would come up in this interview that I could say, all right, I was wrong. But so far, I don't think I am. Now, that's not on you. It's just that, I'm not finding the information that I want to hear. But is there anything, like, did you ever hear anything from your colleagues? Did the cops ever talk amongst themselves at the water cooler, like, hey, the process was involved in Son of Sam? Anything like that?
No.
Rumors?
I never even, like I said, I'd never even heard of the process until my interview with Tiny. Honestly,
right?
Right. Satanic, yes. Satanic cults in New York, of course, we've all heard rumors and stuff, but the process specifically, no.
Right.
And I worked in Alphabet City, and Thompson Square Park had like people that you would assume were devil worshippers just by the way they were dressed late at night. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't know who the process was. I never heard of them.
So then, did you ever come across this De Grimston or anything in like Staten Island? Because I know he lived out there. And so I figured like maybe you heard something about, De Grimston.
Well, I tried to interview him.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Okay.
And well, prior to that, I went through his garbage, and I happened to get very lucky and find his not his W-2, but some kind of tax information, tax payment. Mm-hmm. And he worked for a utilities company at the time, I don't remember which one, but a big utilities company at the time. And he was some kind of heavyweight supervisor. And he made a lot of money because I saw what he made.
Right.
When I tried to interview him, he was never home. Then one day he actually answered the door. I was alone. Mm-hmm. He answered the door, and he didn't give me any expression. He didn't say yes or no. He just stood there like a wooden dummy.
But in what capacity were you there?
As a cop. To
talk to him about what?
I was going to talk to him about the Son of Sam stuff.
The Son of Sam stuff?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yes.
And so did you actually broach that subject with him? Did you say to him in front of his face, Son of Sam, and there was no reaction?
Introduced myself. I said, I need to speak to you. And he just stood there as if he had like Alzheimer's disease. He was old then.
Wow.
How old?
Okay.
Assuming, I don't know. He looked like he was probably 70, early 70s maybe, but he looked old. He looked old. He didn't look good.
Right.
Stood there as if he had Alzheimer's or dementia, and he didn't answer me. And I knew he probably didn't because I have his tax pay. He doesn't know I saw his tax information. And the tax information wasn't from 20 years ago. It was probably from the year before. So if he's working for a big company making money, he's obviously got all his marbles.
Right. Now, were you going there in an official capacity, or were you just going there like you just decided, hey, I'm going to go visit this guy and knock on his door? Were you there in uniform, wearing your badge?
I was you were sergeant in the detective bureau.
Okay.
It was on my way to work. I mean, it wasn't convenient. It was out of the way, but it was still on my way to work.
Right.
And, I would stop by either on the way there or on the way back, on the way home. And I like I said, at one point I would watch his house, look for him to come in and out, which I never saw him. And then I went through his garbage that day, and then I waited to see him again. I never saw him, and then eventually I had to just give it a shot and knock on his door.
Right. Well, that's great. I mean, listen, Jim Fay bought me this. Get off your ass and knock on doors,
Oh,
which
nice.
which was my philosophy for this whole Son of Sam bit that I've been doing the last year or so. And yeah, it's the only way to really do it. And so he didn't say a word. He didn't acknowledge. He just acted like he was on Alzheimer's. And
Yeah.
then
I
it
asked
just
him his name. I asked him if are you Robert the Grimson, and he just stood there and he didn't answer me. And then I told him I wanted to ask you a question, and he just wouldn't answer. He just stood there, almost to the point where I didn't want the guy to have a heart attack in front of me or drop dead or in the heart attack or any of that stuff. And so I
that
left.
sounds incredibly awkward. So what'd you do? You just kind of walked away?
Yeah, just kind of walked away.
Interesting. So, all right, I want to see if there's anybody, because we're gonna wrap this up, Mike. You've been very generous with your time, and I think that you have basically told us all of what you know. Hopefully, all of what you know. I know that the police always like to keep, even retired ones, always like to keep things close. But let's not wait until 20 years from now to get the money shot. But in case anybody wants to call in for one last call, please do. I just put the link in the chat. So I just want to ask you, Mike, in conclusion, wrapping up everything that we just talked about, in your opinion, and this, of course, is an informed opinion, someone who worked this case, someone who was actual law enforcement, someone who knows something more than I do, more than you do, more than we all do, in all likelihood. I want you to give the audience, not just me, your final assessment, or your assessment, maybe not your final assessment, but your assessment on the process and Son of Sam.
Okay. So, I kind of said it before, and I'll just kind of reiterate. I think there were a group of kids. I shouldn't say kids, young, maybe 20-something-year-olds who had a fascination with the devil, all that crap. Maybe they had some knowledge of the writings of the Grimson and the Process Church. I personally think they were doing stuff in the park, Untermyer Park. I think Berkowitz might have got wind of it.
Okay.
I think Berkowitz might have got wind of it. Went over there a few times, hooked up with these people, went to sex parties with them. I think Tiny was contracted to secure these locations. And as far as the shootings, I think that was maybe an offspring from guys like Berkowitz and some other guys that were just looking to start trouble and looking to see what they can get away with.
Right. Okay. Well, that's basically it. I mean, good assessment. Now, Mike, you know that I'm going to be trying to convince you otherwise in the next couple of months. So, Mike, what I would like to do is follow up with you on this after you and I maybe can find an hour to spend online together looking at some of these new writings that I sent you, because your mind might change, it might not, but I'm always interested in getting professional opinions on this, not just the opinion of the layman, because you're familiar with this case. You know all about it. You know the ins and outs. And your insight into Berkowitz's writings in his apartment are really, I think, what the audience needs to hear. So hopefully you and I can hook up on that at some point in the next, couple of months. I'm not going to be doing these Manny Mondays regularly, most likely. It's just a little too stressful to try to put a show together every week. I've been doing it since last August, and I personally never knew there was so much to report on Son of Sam, but it was starting to burn me out. So we're going to take this very leisurely. But hopefully, Mike, in the next couple of months, 2 months or so, we can schedule another show together, because I think the audience really liked it. We had a lot of people watching today. And of course, everybody knows that you're the man, and you're the man to listen to. So even though I don't totally agree with you, I was very, very happy to get your, and of course, what my opinion means nothing. So again, it is, but I was very happy to get your thoughts on this. And just for everybody out there in the audience, I want you guys to sign up. Hey, he's got 4 more subscribers just on today's show alone. It went up to 886 in just the last hour. So let's get that up to 1,000, guys. Let's get that up to 1,000 today. and Mike Codella's up against the wall. Hey, I want to ask you if there's any double meaning with that, Mike. Like, I know that you would probably say that to the perps, but to me, it almost maybe, and maybe this was subconscious on your part, but like just you getting shut down in 1996, it's almost like the police department put you up against the wall. You know what I mean? Was there any of that in the naming of this?
Just in general terms, I think we all bang our head against the wall sometimes or run into the wall. So that's what that was about, actually.
Oh yeah, it's a great title. So, and Mike's videos are always fun to watch. Unlike me, he's quick. He does his videos in usually under 20 minutes, whereas I like to talk forever. But no, so it's much easier to watch than my videos. But he's really got some great information there. And Mike was, of course, involved with all this. So these are resources that we need to not only support, but we also need to tap these resources as well. And I, for one, am extremely proud that I have been able to make the acquaintance of the great Mike Codella, and him and I have become good friends in the series. And I always know that if I give Mike a call, that he will either answer the phone or call me back within a day. And anything that I need to ask him, he's always willing to help. So, Mike, thank you so much for appearing today. That was great. I'm going to take you off and just do a quick outro, but if you wouldn't mind sticking around for a minute or two so we can talk off the air when we're done, and we'll see you right there. So everybody say goodbye to Mike. Mike's been great. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks for having me, man. Nice seeing you again.
You too, for sure. All right, just stick around. I'll be just another minute. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for watching today's episode of Manny Monday. We got 123 of you. I feel so good being up here now that I don't have to make a living doing this anymore, and that I'm not trying to keep together a whole group of people together. That was starting to really cramp my style, folks. And to the extent that anybody cares, I'm going to just make a short video real soon about the future of the series, because even though I thought it was over, I can't go down like that. And I'm not going to allow myself to go down like that. We did too much important work that needs to, be part of the historical record. But at the same time, I do want to curate it. So I'm going to just do a short video in the next couple of days describing exactly how I'm going to proceed with this series. And it's going to have a very different vibe than it had the last year, for sure. So this is certainly not the end, but we're not going to be doing this regularly like we are. But please check my Twitter, because, hey, you know me. I'll probably be doing 10 videos a week. I can't help myself. All right, guys. So listen, thank you so much. This was a great show. And we will see you guys at the next video, whenever that may be. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.